Now what we're going to do is just kind of look at some conceptual examples, some true-false type questions about GCD and LCM, just sort of in general. So the first one, what is the GCD of two even numbers? The largest number that's common to both, that will divide into both. A lot of times people think it's 2. And it might be, let's just do some examples with some numbers. If we wanted to find the GCD, for example, of 2 and 20, those are both even. The biggest number that'll divide into both of them is 2. But what about the GCD of 4 and 40? Is that 2? Those are both even, right? 2 goes into 4, 2 goes into 40, or is there something bigger? Well, I think it's 4, right? Or what about the GCD of 4 and 6? Those are two even numbers. It's 2. So sometimes it's 2, but sometimes it could be bigger than that. But I'll tell you, it's always going to be an even number. So I know that you want to put 2 as an answer here, but that's a little too specific. The GCD of two even numbers will always be an even number. It might be 2, but it might be bigger, like this one we got 4. So what's the GCD of two prime numbers? Well, I don't know. Let's pick any prime numbers, like 5 and 7. Those are prime. What's the biggest number that'll divide into both? Well, that would be 1. Well, let's pick some different prime numbers. What about 2 and 11? Those are both prime, and one's even. The biggest number that'll divide into both of those? 1. So if you have two numbers that are prime, the only divisor or factor that they have in common is 1. So the GCD of two prime numbers will always be 1. What's the LCM of two prime numbers? Okay, well, let's switch it here. Let's use the same numbers. The LCM of 5 and 7. The first multiple that they both have in common, so you might want to skip count by like 5s and find the first one that 7 will also divide into. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35. That's the first one that both of these numbers will divide into, 35. How about 2 and 11? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Maybe you want to do the multiples of 11. 11, 22, 33, 44. The first one they have in common is 22. So what you'll notice, how do we get that number? It's really just 5 times 7. And what's this one? It's just 2 times 11. So the LCM of two prime numbers is just the product of the two numbers. You just multiply them together because they don't have any factors in common. So to get the LCM, the least common multiple, you just multiply the two together. Now what about relatively prime numbers? Okay, relatively prime numbers mean that both numbers may not be prime per se, but relative to one another, they don't have any factors in common. So like, for example, what about 4 and 5? Those are relatively prime. 4 is not prime. 5 is. But together, they're prime relative to each other because the biggest number that divides into them is 1. And that's actually what makes them relatively prime. So the GCD of prime numbers and relatively prime numbers will always be 1. And I bet you can guess what the LCM would be. I'll just keep using 4 and 5. The smallest multiple that these have in common, let's skip count by 5s and find the first one that 4 will divide into. So 5, 10, 15, 20 is 20. Or pick a different pair. You could pick LCM of 2 and 9. Those are relatively prime. The first multiple that they have in common, 18. So how do you get it? It's the product of the two numbers. The point here is that prime and relatively prime kind of act alike. So these two examples and these two that go together, you can see the similarities there. So that's just some kind of like true-false type of, those could translate to true-false type questions in the homework or on a test. They're just sort of like conceptual questions that you just have to kind of think about. There's not any way to like memorize these necessarily. You just have to sort of think about them.